This story in Genesis chapter 1 is my story, and it's your story. It's the story of every child of God. Because, as 1 Peter tells us, we were once darkness. And he spoke, "Let there be light." And there was light. Not only that, but where there was once nothing, there was suddenly something. How much righteousness did you have before you became a believer? You had no righteousness. God says, "Let there be light." The light shines in the darkness. And where there was no righteousness, now there is the righteousness of Christ. But that's not the end of this story, because once "let there be light" happens and someone flips on the light switch on your personal closet of chaos, God begins to bring order out of your chaos. And what you once did not discern to be sin, you now know to be sin. And you are called to be separate from it. Why? Because God is a God who separates. And he begins to place space between you and who you used to be. And he calls you a holy people, and he sets you apart. But that's not where it ends, because what does he do next? He begins to bring about fruitfulness and multiplication in your life. You know, I'm so dumb, because for forever I thought that the command to be fruitful and multiply meant that I was supposed to have lots of babies. I did have a fair number of babies, to be honest, but I did not have that in view at the time. And there are even religions that tell women that their worth is found in how many physical offspring they can have, but fruitfulness and multiplication, how does the single woman find herself in that narrative? How does the infertile woman find herself in that narrative? How does the woman who's lost a child find herself in that narrative? It's about way more than that. And on a spiritual level, it is this idea that the Lord can bring fruitfulness out of our lives. What kind of fruit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the fruits that he begins to bring about in us, and the multiplication begins to happen in the sense that we begin to share the love of God with others around us. What else? Well, it says that we were created in his image, and that's what we begin to see in our own lives as well, that the image of God, which has been marred, which has been masked by what we're going to read about in chapter 3 in Genesis, begins to be seen in us more clearly the longer that we follow Christ. How about ruling and subduing? We begin to learn to walk in the power of the Spirit and to have dominion over sin. It takes a lifetime, but we finally want to do it. Just as the work of Eden that is described here was to be a joyful work, the work of our sanctification becomes a joyful work for us as well. So we have fruitfulness, and we begin to bear the image of God, and we begin to rule and subdue sin. And here's the best part. We begin to find rest. Now, it's a partial rest right now. We have rest in the finished work of Christ, but we know that there still remains for the people of God a Sabbath rest, that there is a rest that is coming for us one day when we go to be with the Lord, when the sun no longer is required because all worship will be given to him, and we will enter into the Sabbath rest that does not end.